Is this working? Yes, we are live. Yay! Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How are you doing? All right, let's see while I'm getting this going if I can pull up the live in my group because I don't always see the comments otherwise in the Facebook thing. So I'm going to pull that up while I'm saying hi. How's everyone's weekend? How's everyone's week off to a new start? I chopped off like half of my hair over the weekend, probably a little dramatic. Maybe not quite that much, but I'm still getting, there's the live, still getting used to having the shorter hair. So you have to let me know if we like it shorter or longer. That's my my non-important share with you. Okay, what are we talking about today? We've got a good juicy conversation. I'm going to talk and share about the exact mindset trash I had to work through to make my first 10K month in business and takeaways for your own 5-figure months. If you don't know, part of the reason for this conversation is we have a free masterclass happening next week in this group called the Path to Consistent 10K Months. We are going to dig into the exact clarity, mindset, strategy, and action to help you understand, yes, how to think about your business and set up your offer to set you up for reoccurring revenue, because I know I talk about this with clients and I work on this with my clients so much. We are here for 10K months, but I want you to not just make a 5-figure month or multi-5-figure month. You might be looking at 50K or 100K months, but I really want you to also understand how to have an offer and a strategy with a customer journey that allows you to make this money on repeat, because I'm more interested in how you're making reoccurring revenue you can rely on, and you having a process you know what to show up for, so you're avoiding those big peaks and valleys in your income in your business. I will say that has been one of the most sustainable, spacious, peaceful things I have given to myself in my business is creating that kind of reliability in my own business journey with my own revenue. So we're going to dive into that next week. It's completely free. I'll drop a link for it after this live stream. You can also go to the top of the group and just click on the Facebook banner. There should be a link there for you. When you sign up, you'll also get a bonus playbook that's going to help you put this into action and speed up your results from our class. And you'll also be entered to win a full free session with me, a full length session. So not a mini session, but I'm giving away one full length session, and those are super valuable just for someone who signs up. So that'll be next week and today, but that's the reason for this conversation. I'm all on a tear about 10K months, not because you need to make 10K months or not. Some of you might have bigger goals. Some of you might want to make your first $1,000 month. The amount of money is a little less relevant. However, I do think 10K months, we talk about them so much because for most of you, that is the amount that puts you a little over 6-figure years, so that you can both have some sort of virtual assistant support, pay taxes, and still be able to pay yourself a salary that feels sustainable, so you're making enough money to support yourself. Because I do think in business it's a little different than having, I know, it's a little different than having a corporate job where someone else is covering your health insurance and you're just going to have different expenses. So I do think that's why we talk so much about 10K months. So I do think for many of you, that is an amount that makes sense to want. I don't think it's just about having flashy numbers. I think there's actually a reason we talk about that so much. And I really want to support more of you to reach that and to see that's a very realistic goal for you in business. And I want to help you have that happen. So sign up, join me for that. And Tinley says, lurking because I love you and always love being activated by you. Oh my God, I love you so much, Tinley. I get to see you this week. I'm so excited about that. So that is the masterclass next week. Don't mind me just geeking out on seeing friendly faces on here. And then if you say hi, drop an emoji, anything on this live stream, you will be entered. We're giving away one copy of my self-study course, Get Unstuck, Unlock Your Success. It walks through 5 of the most common mindset blocks that entrepreneurs have to get you in your own way and how to unhook from those. Okay, now let's dig into today's conversation. So I'm on a tear about 10K months, and I was actually looking at my old journals from when I made my first 10K month in my business. And my journal specifically, I keep journals for my coaching sessions and some of the notes I had worked through, and was pulling up what was coming up for me. So I shared this in a post this week, but it took me 2.5 years to make my first 10K month in business. I had 8K months, 7K months before that, but my first 10K month took me 2.5 years. It took me 3 years to have my first 6-figure year in business. And that the conversation was that short, was that fast. I think the timeline is almost irrelevant. I think for all of you, please know, I have clients who have made 6 figures literally in 3 months. I have clients who it's taken them similar to me, it's taken longer time period. And that is not what this conversation is about. But let me just say, business is not a fucking race. And I think we can get so wrapped up around that. But the reason I'm reflecting that to you is I think one of the reasons it took me, I don't know, some ways 2.5 years I think is nothing looking back, but I think in our online space I can feel like, oh my God, such a long time. And so when I look at what were the things that slowed down, that helped maybe speed up going to that 10K month. And since then I've had 50, 10K to 40K months. So right now we hover between 25 to 40K cash a month. I have a revenue share model. I have an all one-on-one model. So that's why we have a little bit of that fluctuation. But I've had 50 consecutive months since then, just to give some context here. And so when I look at what's that big difference there, my strategy hasn't changed all that much. I've definitely refined the fuck out of my strategy, but the practical strategy hasn't changed all that much. But the mindset component is a huge piece of when I made some mindset shifts, what allowed me to speed up or to reach those 10K months. And what happened is when I made a 10K month, it was 1 or 2 months later, I jumped right from that to a 24K month. And I pretty much sustained that amount or more from after that. And a lot of that was mindset related. And so I was just pulling out my old coaching journals. I'm like, what were some of the specific mindset things I had to work through? What was some of the trash that was slowing me down in business? Because I really think so much of the stuff that comes up for us, it's what's personal is universal. I don't know if you've heard that saying. It's a saying, I think it's a therapy saying, but I really do think so much of what's personal is universal. And while you might not have the exact same stuff that comes up for me, we're all different. Some of my clients have different patterns and things that come up for me. I have quite a lot of capital T trauma in my past that I've also had to work through, that I think I share quite a bit about. So I think that also had a big component for me. I do think some of these are some of the more universal things that I see come up for clients now. And I think it makes me really equipped to spot that in my clients. So I'm going to share some of these with you. And I want to be really mindful as we're having this conversation. One of the reasons I want to share through the lens of what I've had to work through is because hopefully this will be normalizing for you to see this is just part of the journey and this is human. And some of what we're talking about, I'll share which is the one I still really have like an edge I have to work through. And I share that because I think sometimes with this kind of things, we almost get into black or white thinking with mindset. And it's sort of like we either have a good mindset or a bad mindset. It's either wrong or right. We either are thinking like a successful CEO or not. We're either being the millionaire or we're not. And I think it's very easy for us to make ourselves wrong. That's not one of the mindsets today, but I do see that in my clients a lot. And I think that is such a way to hold yourself back and to slow down your growth. And I think what can also happen is we can look to others and just see someone's positive stuff in the mindset or just what happened after they've worked through something or see their results and unintentionally think that, well, then they've got it all figured out. And look, I've got definitely a lot of stuff figured out. I've done a lot of work and I'm still a human working through stuff. And I want to keep normalizing that no matter where you're at on this entrepreneurial journey, no matter who you look up to, you can look up to that person who's making $1 million a minute. I promise you they're still a human having a human experience and they still have stuff they're going through. I would say the big difference I see and what I see in myself and what I see in my clients as we create more success, as we hold more clients, as we hold more money, is I think I've just gotten way, way, way better at spotting my shit, like noticing for what it is, not getting sucked in by it, and being able to work through it, not listen to it. And what maybe used to spin me out for weeks, it's now like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, or like I just don't even listen to it. And I think that's more when we're talking mindset, what I would offer is, as we're talking through some of these, the goal is not like how do we get to never having these thoughts or these patterns come up, but it's more how can we just get so much better at having grace with ourselves, but also noticing our stuff for what it is and not letting our stuff run the show, because our stuff is usually like our 7-year-old self or our 12-year-old self, right? How can we not let that be the CEO of our business? And instead, I talk so much about a CEO role, a CEO mindset, showing up from a place of neutrality. How can we instead get into that CEO role that's like, hey, I hear you, brain. I hear what's going on. I love you. I have compassion for you, but also not fucking listen to you right now. Makes me think of the Elizabeth Gilbert. Has anybody read Big Magic? And she has a great quote where she's talking, I think it's like Fear is in the car with her, and she's like, you can ride shotgun with me, but basically you don't get to touch any of the dashboard dials. I'm driving. That's kind of what's happening with the mindset pieces. But okay, let's talk through let's tell you what was in my notes, and this is like straight from my coaching sessions. Okay, so the first one here, I would say this, I don't think this is the biggest one for my clients. I'd say this is this, I'll share in a little bit, I think the biggest one I work with my clients on, but I would say this is one of the biggest ones I also see in my clients. And this is when I was first starting my business, I think this was one of the bigger ones for me. And that was noticing where I was abdicating my power or where I was giving my power away. And let me explain what I mean by this and why this was such a big mindset piece and or mindset trash essentially for me. And I think this is one where hopefully you'll see, like, this wasn't like, oh, I wasn't being positive and not believing in myself. It's I was literally just bleeding power everywhere, and really I've had to do a lot of work. It felt really, really, really uncomfortable for me to take my power back and to stand and sit in my power. I'd say this is actually an edge for me still. I think I've gotten way better at it. And my coach would probably, if she was on a call with us, be like, yeah, no. And when I'm in it for too long, it like freaks me out and I just want to like shove and push it away. And I think this is one of the biggest things that will slow down your growth, quite honestly, in business. And I also want to normalize, I think it's super edgy, and I think it's uncomfortable. I think it does feel, I think it feels safer in our nervous system to give our power away, but also when you're giving your power away, you're giving your control away, and you're telling yourself a story that you don't know how to do something, or that you're not able to do something, or that someone else knows better than you. And that will always slow you down, and that will always have you get yourself into comparison or to think there's a secret out there or something you're missing. And so when I was starting my business, I would say the first year probably in business, one of the biggest places I abdicated my power or gave it away was to other people's marketing, to other people's strategies, and to what other people were doing. I really, and also to other, I would say also to other people's opinions of me. And I would say that was such a place where so much of my power and energy got given away to like, what are they doing? Is that working? What I'm doing must not be working. Let me try that strategy. I've shared this before. But I think this is a piece of like self-trust as well, but it's so fascinating to me. My first year in business, I supported a client to $1 million, and yet I wasn't making 10K months myself. And I think it's just so interesting because I was able to be in my power coaching that client, but then when I was running my own business, right, I wasn't able to be in that power. And literally what I coached that client around, one of the things that supported her business blowing up was not listening to other people. Sometimes we coach people around what we need ourselves, right? But it was around not listening to other people, really trusting her voice, her taking up more space, really owning a message that kind of went against what everyone said. And then she really went all in on one strategy that was sort of the opposite of what people in her industry were saying was like the way to make money. And it literally blew her business up. It worked. But she had to go so far into that. She had to trust herself and really be in her power around that. And meanwhile, I'm over here in my business where I'm like, well, I knew it worked, right? I would get on calls with people. I would book clients. I was great at what I did, but I didn't trust my strategy. And I was, oh, this person says Pinterest is the thing to do. And so like suddenly I'm taking their webinar on fucking Pinterest stuff, even though I'm not on Pinterest. Like I was just jumping all over the place, listening to what everybody had to say, what everybody had to tell me. And also just listening to a lot of people's marketing and just really, thinking my business wasn't working, but it was so out of my control, instead of seeing, no, my business was just literally reflecting back to me where my power was going and what my mindset was, which is I feel out of control and I don't trust myself. So please reflect that back to me. And I'm just so willing to search for the secret in everybody else because I'm just so willing to give my power to everyone. I would say as I got a little closer to 10K months, that shifted a little bit. I really did start to stop giving my power away to people's marketing, but I started giving my power away to things like a client not honoring their contract or paying, right? I think this is something like, this is like the shadow side to business that like no one wants to talk about. And I think you would be hard pressed to find a business owner who has not had someone not honor a contract or fail a payment. Like I do not think you could find someone who's making good money who's never had that happen. But at that stage, I wasn't in my power. I wasn't in my CEO role in the same way. And something like that, I just gave my power away to that. And not in the way that like I was giving that power to the client, but in that way where it just made me feel so unsafe and so like I couldn't trust myself and trust my business, and all of my energy and focus would be like around stressing about that. I wanted to fix it or making myself wrong, and it was just, again, just another way I was abdicating my power. And then I would say some of it was also just like in things where I was like, I really did, I think there was like a specific, like if I could just find the secret, like there must be a secret thing that if I can just like say this thing or do this thing, like what's everybody else doing, like then my business is gonna pop. And the truth is, as soon as I stopped giving that power away, it was like really wild how like suddenly the money just started flowing through my business so much more. And I think that's why when I finally made that 10K month, it was like a 24K month a couple months later. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you got questions, reflections. I'm happy to be as much of an open book here as feels beneficial or useful. So throw that at me, but if not, I'm going to go to the next one here. Actually, which one do I want to go to next? I'm going to go to this one. I just have a lot here, so I'm just like, which one feels more interesting? I'm going to circle back to the one I just want to talk about. I'm going to talk about this one next, because this is actually one of the ways I see my clients hold themselves back a lot as well. And I think this was definitely something I noticed for myself when I was looking at my old coaching notes. And I do think this is related to abdicating your power a little bit, but this is not understanding what's your point of focus. And I mean this in a couple different ways. So I think strategically, I think that was the podcast episode this week, we were talking a little bit about like what's your sales goal, and like knowing, I think we have to have a point of focus in business in terms of literally like, what are you selling? What are you speaking to? What are your clients' problems? What is your message? What are we focusing on in the business? And from a mindset perspective, because we're talking about the mindset trash I had, that I see in my clients, what I think was one of the biggest things I had to work on is noticing what my point of focus was with my own mind. And all of the times I wanted my point of focus to be on everything I perceived that wasn't working, and how easy it is to have, look, business is always going to have a challenge. It's always going to have a problem. Your brain, I talk about this all the time, your brain is wired to perceive negative events 3 to 1, meaning for every 3 events, right? Am I doing the math right here? Let me try to explain the math. Your brain, though, is literally wired to scan the horizon to try to keep you safe. And if the horizon is safe and everything is good, this is why people upper limit, and when they have a lot of success, sometimes freak themselves out a little bit, right? It can be very unsettling. And your brain is constantly scanning for where's the threat, what's the problem, what's wrong, and it will notice what is wrong 3 times to the 1 time it'll notice something good. So if you have one person write you a negative comment, if you have one client who's frustrated with you, and then whatever the math on that would be, I don't know if that's literally means like 3 times that. If you have then one, okay, I'm spinning myself out in math here, but you get what I'm saying. If you have 1 to 2 people upset with what you're doing or just like not perfectly happy, but you have a roster of 20 to 25 clients like I do who are thrilled and who are happy and who are getting great results, but one person leaves a negative comment on your social media, or you see one person post something in a group that you think is about you, or wherever the place is, you're abdicating your power, so these are linked together. Your brain's naturally wired for that. And so much of the work as a CEO, and so much of the work I believe really sets you up to make and hold 10K months or more, is really being mindful of managing your mind. That's why I say manage your mind to manage your business. It's not like because it's a fun tagline. It's because this is the work that changes everything, because most people are not aware of their point of focus in business with their strategy, but also what are they focusing on in terms of what's in their horizon. And most of us as humans are just naturally, if we're not being mindful and if we're not being conscious of really deciding what we're going to focus on, we're going to naturally, by default, you don't have to have even had any like crazy stuff, like any trauma under there. Like just as a human, by default, you're going to notice those negative things, those losses, those potential threats, especially if things are going well, right? It's almost like easier if things are going well. It's just a very fascinating thing our brain will do, again, because it's sort of like we need to stay safe. So like got to look out on the horizon. So what I coach my clients around, and one of the things I really had to shift, is really being mindful of what's my point of focus, and am I intentionally deciding my point of focus is one that serves me, is one that I want, is one that I want more of, because what we focus on expands, right? That is not a fun saying. That is also what you focus on expands. What you tell your brain to look for, what you focus on all of the time, is what you're going to get more of. And so if your point of focus is, this isn't working, everyone's better than me, people don't like me, this client thinks I suck, every time I post, I hear crickets, whatever that is, right? That's your point of focus. That's just what you're going to get more of. Nothing's working. I'm not making enough money, right? I'm worried about paying the bills next month. What's your point of focus? That will tell you what you're going to get more of. And I literally had a call the client last week where we were talking about this, and Tinley says my brain is a problem generating factory. Welcome to being human. I just love you, Tinley, for saying that. Hey Claire, nice to see you on here. I love you for saying that, Tinley, because I think it's just so normalizing. Like, who on this live, like, raise your hand now or on the replay if you feel like your brain is a problem generating factory, and then just say, hey, good job, brain. Welcome to being human. You're doing your job so fucking well. And our brains make kind of shitty CEOs. Of course, you need your brain in your business. I think I have a really great brain. I have a near genius level brain. You want my brain in your business, but you want my CEO brain. You don't want Kim's brain that's not being managed in your business. And same for all of you. You're all really smart. Your brain's working really well if it's a problem generating factory. And we want to keep looking at what's your point of focus. What are you telling your brain to focus on? Are you allowing your brain to run the show and to run amok and to do what it does on default? Because on default, it is going to be a problem generating machine, and it is going to just look for every problem. And even if there's not a problem, right, it is just like a hungry hippo looking for what is wrong. Or it will find and latch onto one little thing. The client you perceived was unhappy, the one testimonial or response that wasn't great, the one person who failed to make a payment, the one comment you got that wasn't positive, right? It's going to latch onto that and focus on that and look for more evidence of that. The work and what made all of the difference for me is really becoming super disciplined of being the boss of my brain, being the CEO of my brain, literally tapping into the executive functioning center of my brain, right? There's a part of our brain, let's call that, and telling my brain, we get to decide what the point of focus is, and we are deciding the point of focus is all of the things we want more of, and being really, really disciplined with, like, this is what we keep focusing on. This is what we keep focusing on. Nope, still not focusing on that. This is our point of focus, and looking for all of the evidence of what I wanted to be true. So hopefully that makes sense. I think that makes sense for most of us, but I think this is just one of those things that so often we want to. I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. I think this is one of the easiest ways to retrain your brain. So often I think we want to change a story or rearrange a story or to rewrite something. I think that can be so powerful, and sometimes the simplest way is also just to keep coming back to, what is my point of focus? That will tell me what I'm going to get more of. How instead can I choose a different point of focus and make it my full-time fucking job to keep focusing on that and to keep bringing in evidence for more of that. So if your point of focus has been on that person who triggered you last week, or that post you saw in someone's Facebook group that made you feel like all the shit you're doing is wrong in business, probably not the point of focus, right, that you actually want, but that is triggering the negativity bias in your brain. How can you instead manage your mind and say, what is the point of focus I want? Maybe the point of focus I want is, I'm really great at what I do. Everything I'm doing is working. These 3 clients today that I worked with had such a great experience with me. This person just gave me a great feedback, right? How can you switch your point of focus and reinforce that? And so what I started to do, this sounds cheesy, y'all, and if you're a client of mine, I've probably had you do this before as well. I just started keeping an evidence log, and every day in the morning I asked myself, what is my point of focus? And then at the end of the day, I just collected evidence and really started to train my mind to look for evidence of that point of focus. And I think that was one of the bigger things that had me crack 10K months and then have that quickly jump up from there. So hopefully that makes sense. I have examples here, but I think I can give more examples if you want, but I want to go. Tinley says Kitty, best guest feature ever. Did my cat just come through and I didn't even notice? Claire says mindset work, mindset work, mindset work always. Claire, it's just like, you know what's really funny, Claire? I I preach mindset work so much, and even I need to remind myself, like I every day spend half an hour to an hour, and I think I've just gotten so used to doing mindset work that I was having a conversation with Lacey, with my coach, and I was just talking with her recently. It's like I almost forgot that mindset work works so well because it's just become so natural, and so I appreciate you saying that because it's I think we even need reminders ourselves where it's like, yes, mindset work is always the thing. And even when it's a strategy thing, y'all, I think about this so often with even at this stage of business, right? I've been very vocal. I've been working my messaging and content pretty much all year. But the reason that feels so much easier and the reason I feel like that's given us great results is because of all the mindset work on the back end of it to allow myself to look really neutrally at the data and allow myself to look really neutrally at what I want to shift, allow myself to look really neutrally at testing certain things, allow myself really neutrally to show up in certain ways. And that's only possible because of the mindset work on the other side. And I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but I say that because I think even as someone who preaches mindset work, because I've gotten so used to it, I sometimes forget how it is literally the key to, like, it is the gasoline to everything. And I think it's just easy to to forget that sometimes. So Claire, I appreciate that. Claire says, me too. It's become a habit. So even so, it's easy to slip into negatives. That's why it's even important to stay consistent. I also love you for saying that because I think that's just so the truth. And that was what I think you missed the beginning of the live stream. But one of the things I was saying is this is an ongoing journey. It's not like suddenly you find the mindset trash you've had and work through that and then it never comes up again. I mean, I'm sure you would attest to this, Claire. Claire says totally agree. Like, this is an ongoing journey and ongoing work. We just get better and faster at catching our stuff and noticing it and shifting it and rearranging it. Or what we were just talking about, what's your point of focus? Reshifting our point of focus. And so I think that's just so helpful for everyone to keep hearing and having normalized. Like, this isn't a destination that we're talking about. This is just simply the work forever. Sorry, not sorry, but I said sorry really weird. But sorry, not sorry, but I think in some ways maybe that's just really permission giving, and maybe can just let everyone have a breath or a sigh of relief. It also gets way more fun. Like, I think mindset work gets more and more fun, and I think it makes life way more fun as well. Okay, let me go to some others because otherwise I will go off on 45 tangents, and I got more about these, and I want to make sure I keep us kind of to time, but I will close out on the one that is still my biggest edge. We haven't talked about that yet. Okay, so we talked about where you're abdicating your power. We talked about what's your point of focus. This next one here is kind of a two-part. There's a little bit of dichotomy here, so I'm hoping this will make sense to everyone. And it's the reason that is it's around confidence, but I think there's a big confusion around confidence in our space. And I think that, well, let me share my mindset trash, and then I'll share what I think is confusing about this. So my mindset trash that really came up is I just honestly had crap confidence. Like, let's just call that how that is. Again, a lot of trauma with a capital T, done a lot of therapy and a lot of work, but just in the gutter, right? And so I think that is important to know. I think that is probably the number one reason, quite honestly, it took me 2.5 years to make my first 10K month, and then why, when I did, I've never not made 5 figures or multi 5-figure cents, right? We've had 50, 10K to 40K months since then, mostly 25 to 40K in the last, I'd say, 3 years. But I think that's because over that 2.5 years, I really had to work through all of that confidence crap, essentially, and become the person who really believed in myself and believed in my work. And our coach, Lacey Seitz, my coach, that talks about, I say our coach, but I think some of you here have Lacey as well, but she talks a lot about being sold on yourself as sort of like the first thing in sales. And I think there's an element of that, and I'm going to speak to my thoughts on that in a moment, but like, I this was like so deeply ingrained of like, I had to just be so do the work on like trusting my work and believing that my work was good enough and could really help people. And the reason I say this is confusing, there's like 3 parts three parts to this. So I had to become that person, right? I think when I became that person, I think that's why it was easy to sustain those results. But I also think it just took me that long to do that work because of a lot of the stuff I had to work through and clear out. But here's what's really fascinating. Maybe there's two parts here. Here's what's fascinating for me. What I've since really learned about myself is, it turns out I've always been really confident, and I was actually really confident in my work, which I know this sounds backwards. What I wasn't confident in is the safety of being confident in my work and expressing that and sharing that with others, and how people would perceive that or how people would take that. And that was really the work I had to do. And so that's why I was like, I think this is a little confusing. Like I actually came into this space pretty confident as a coach. Not that I don't still have, like, I think we all have stuff that comes up, but pretty confident as a coach, pretty confident in like my ability to figure things out and my ability to make things work and my ability that I came into this business with no plan B. Like, this was the thing I was going to do. What really was the edge for me, and I share this because I think for some of you, and I talk with a lot of clients about this, I think there can literally be, right, the self-esteem, the confidence piece, but I think, and I have many clients where it's like when we unpack a layer deeper, it turns out they're actually secretly kind of confident. What they're not confident in is sharing that publicly. I talk so much about taking up space, right? Hiding in plain sight versus taking up space, is sharing that publicly and not having the backlash they think is going to come with that. And they're not confident in their ability to like stand in that and to own that and what that means. And I think that was really one of the biggest edges, and it's still my biggest edge at every single level. It's like, this is like, what is it? New level, same devil. This is probably, I just recorded a podcast episode with Julia Wells coming out beginning of October. We're talking about this more, but I would say like this is just probably the stickiest thing for me at every single level in business. Is it's not, am I good enough, or am I great at what I do? It's, I believe I am, but oh my gosh, to say that and to own that and to like share that with people, and then to sit and like, and then what are people going to say or think about me? That confidence, I think that's a different kind of confidence. And I think that's just something for, I don't know, y'all have to tell me. I think maybe this is more a woman thing, but I don't know. I have male clients as well, and I think this comes up for my male clients as well. I think this is just something that it's almost like we don't want to talk about a lot. And I think that is a form of confidence that it's really interesting. And what I see is the more that I lean into that edge and the more I play with that edge and the more I'm willing to, the easier it is in business. The easier it is to make money, the easier it is to support clients, the easier everything is, the easier it is to attract money and to hold money. And every time I want to pull back and shrink back in that, in some ways we could say that's a way of abdicating power, right? The first thing we talked about, I can literally see the difference in my bank account. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it took me so long, but also then once I made that amount of money, it's only gone kind of there and up. And I mean, I think for that first year, it was like every month it just went up until kind of what we've been sustaining at. But I think part of that is I just had to do so much work to become comfortable with playing with and working that edge that I became kind of a different version of myself. So when I say confidence, that is for me what I mean, but I want to offer those two pieces for you. And then I have one other piece around confidence I want to speak to, but there's comments here. Claire says, agreed, haha, I love the investigation, it's so interesting. Oh wait, am I reading this backwards? No. Let me know if I missed a comment because one of these might have flown away. Denise says, mindset trash is the worst. It is, we all have it. So, we just all get to throw out the trash together. Claire says, oh my gosh, I can resonate. I had so much imposter syndrome, so I knew I was excellent, but owning that was the challenge. Thank you for saying that. I think it's just so normalizing. I think I've got a thought on imposter syndrome and come back to it. I think it's just so helpful to like see like it's that nuanced, because then we're also doing the right mindset work, right? We're not like, how do we get puffed up on ourselves, because that's not actually the work we need. It's how do we feel safe owning publicly, actually, I think I'm kind of good at what I do, y'all, right? Like that's a different beast. Claire says, I think we may have touched on this in Life by Design when you were my guest. I think I did. Yeah, I think we did talk about that. We should pull that episode and drop that for everyone. Kate says, totally. Kate says, being truly seen as a huge edge for me. I think I'm just so interested for y'all, like how many of for you is that an edge? I like, even as I'm talking about this, like I'm just gonna be so like, I don't know if you can see, my eyes are almost tearing up because it's just sort of like, oh, even talking about this is a little like, it's just an edge, I think, for all of us. And how fascinating. It makes me think of the Marianne Williamson quote, our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate, but it's sort of, how does it go? If someone could pull that up, but it's basically that our biggest fear is our own power. And I think that's why, when I was talking about abdicating your power, I think that's one of the reasons that we will secretly give our power away to so many places, because that just feels safer. Because I think for so many of us, the fear is, again, not that we're actually inadequate. It's just like, what if I'm not inadequate? What if I'm actually this good? Like, what do I do with that? Like, I think that can just feel heavy. I think it can feel confronting. I think it can feel like it comes with a lot of responsibility. I think it can make, for those of us who have been raised to be the nice girl or the good girl, right? It can make us feel like bitches, or I think all of the things. And so then I think something like imposter syndrome is just like such a safer thing to latch onto. I think we all have, I think many of us have shadow mindset trash, right? Where it's like, this is the acceptable mindset trash, but if I'm really honest with myself, I don't actually feel like an imposter. I feel like maybe I'm kind of awesome, right? Because it's just the safer thing to latch onto. And the other side to this that I want to touch on really quickly, and I think imposter syndrome is a great lead-in for that, is imposter syndrome is very different than, I've just never done this before, and I've just never done this before, right? That's not called being an imposter. And so the other edge to this, and I think this is a place that I do have confidence and I didn't have mindset trash around, but it is something I support clients with, is that expectation that you should just be confident in everything in business, even if you've never done it before, and that you shouldn't feel like an imposter and you should be able to fake it till you make it. And I think that is just the biggest bunch of bullshit ever. The truth is, you gain confidence is a result. It is not a prerequisite. You do not need to feel confident to get results. Now, that's not the same mindset trash we were talking about. I do think you need to believe in yourself and your work, right? That's a slightly different thing, but you don't actually, confidence is what you get after doing something, and doing something enough that you do it really well. I have confidence in coaching because I've been on thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of coaching calls. I have confidence in my ability to sell because at one point, I didn't know how to sell. At one point, I got a job as a cocktail server and I was shy AF, right? And I had to learn how to sell and how to handle a bunch of drunk idiots, basically, right? I have confidence in things because I didn't have confidence and I didn't know how to do them, but I had confidence in myself to figure shit out and to do stuff even if I didn't know how to do it, and to know I didn't need to know how to do things in advance to learn them, because that doesn't make sense, right? And that doesn't mean you're an imposter. That just means you haven't learned yet. And I have confidence in my ability to, again, figure things out and learn things. And I think that is a place that will trip up a lot of people, is the belief that I have to wait until I'm really confident to go out and sell or to go out and market. And the truth is, that is just a byproduct. That is the gift of doing something a lot. And confidence is just like, you get to feel good after. And it's okay. When I started creating content, when I first went live, oh my God, I had no idea what I was doing, right? And that's okay. And I still made money. That is not a prerequisite to 10K months, just so you know. The prerequisite is believing in yourself, like having the confidence, like your power, where it's like, am I willing to be seen? Am I willing to tell people I'm good at what I do? Do I believe in what I'm selling? Do I have confidence in the work I'm selling? And do I have confidence in myself to show up even if I'm figuring shit out? And so hopefully that makes sense, because it sounds like it's all the same thing, but I think those are different types of confidence. Let's see. Claire says, yes, I'll grab it. Gosh, it really is an edge. It is just such an edge. It just really is. Okay, let me know if the confidence piece makes sense, or if you want me to explain anything there, because I feel like I was doing a lot of double speak, and hopefully that difference makes sense. I do think those are different components of what sounds like the same thing, but I do think those are like different pieces of maybe the same thing. I do think, and I found myself, that it is tough to attract clients, to create a certain level of result in your business, that if you feel like you are a fake in it, or if you feel like you're not good enough, or that you don't know what you're doing with what you're actually selling. I think you can, what is it, Rich Lichtenstein talks about, like, always strive to be an imposter, because that means you're stretching yourself enough and you're going outside your comfort zone It's kind of everything we're talking about here. And so I think there's this slight nuance where in some ways, for all of you who are stretching, you're probably always going to feel a little like an imposter, right? Every time I work with a new client, especially like at a new level, or like, okay, now we're going past $1 million, or to two and I have a client who's at the $2.5 million mark, right? Like, of course, there's a little bit of that, just like, oh, this is a new edge, like this is a new stretch. Can I do this, right? I think that's a healthy, maybe integrity, like a healthy just stretchiness. And I think in some ways we almost always want to have a little bit of that, like in air quotes, imposter syndrome. But that is very different than the solid belief in, I believe and trust myself, and I have the confidence in myself as a business owner, as a coach, as someone where like, I know I can figure shit out. I know how to coach. I know how to serve people. I get business, right? What I'm selling, I feel really solid putting a price tag behind. I think that's the place where if that feels wobbly, don't make yourself wrong. I think that's then the place where it's like, how can you do some work there? Because I do think if that feels wobbly, it is very challenging to sell and make the money you want to, because we really do need to be more confident in our offer and what we're actually selling than the person we're selling to, right? And I think remembering that is the part where confidence and what I was saying, my coach Lacey Sites with an S, teaches in terms of you have to be sold on yourself. I think that part there is so crucial and important. And then there are all these other elements here that we're talking about where it's like, and you're going to have lots of times where because you're literally stretching that you're not going to be sold on that element, right? That is very healthy. But can you do the work to be really sold on the work you're putting a price tag behind? That's, I think, the invitation. And that, I would say, makes a huge difference when all of that work is like what catapulted me over to the 10K months. And that's what helps me sustain 5 and multi-5-figure cash months. Let's just see here. Claire said I had sweaty palms on my first lives. Now I love an audience. Haha, that's when they come alive. Oh my gosh, my first live. Side tangent, but I'm having fun with this. I did a challenge in someone's Facebook group. They had like a live challenge. So it was live inside their group as a challenge. And I was literally sweaty palms. I still to this day get sweaty. I probably tell y'all, but I also get sweaty like when I'm just really excited and when I'm really like adamant about a topic, my face turns bright red. I think it was great for acting because like my emotions are on my face, but it also means I wear my emotions on my face. So literally you can see me cry on a live stream or sweat or whatever, and then I just announce it. So Claire, same. I was sweaty on the first one, and I was so scared, y'all. And I'm an ex-actress. I spent 10 years being on camera, but what I always say to everyone is when I was on camera acting, I got lines to hide behind. Someone told me who to be. I got to play a character. I didn't have to show up as Kim. I got to show up as whoever I was playing. And I wasn't speaking to a camera. I was speaking to another human. And then I was like, there's a voyeur camera watching you and capturing it all. That was easy for me. But when suddenly I had to show up as Kim, for all the reasons we just talked about, right? Where I'm like, now I have to tell you that like, actually, I kind of think I'm good at what I do. And don't hate me for it, and will you pay me money? I mean, it was just like the live stream itself, easiest thing in the world. I could talk clearly for eons on any topic, but the mindset stuff around that was, I mean, I was sweaty as well. It's the long-winded way of saying that. And I think it's helpful for everyone to see because that's so super normal. And now I go live every week, and I'll go around the city on my phone and go live, and I could care less. And sometimes I'll have something I'm really excited about and my brain will do its thing. I'm just able to catch it in 3 minutes and not spin out instead of what probably took me like a whole day to prepare to go live for 5 minutes in the past. So hopefully that'll be permission giving for everyone as well. Claire says me too, it's the adrenaline excitement. I had added, adaptogenic coffee last month and it made it worse. Oh, so interesting. Some of the adaptogens will really spike you up. Oh, coffee. I got what you were saying. It's really interesting. Y'all will know sometimes I'll have a cold brew before a live stream, and then you think I talk a lot now, then forget about it. Then I'm like amped, beyond amped. Okay, let me bring us back to my last ones here. I'm very chatty Cathy today. Okay, so we talked about where you're abdicating your power. We talked about what's your point of focus. We talked about confidence, but really understanding those different layers of confidence. And then also where you do really want to have that confidence, because it is tough to sell something where you're asking your audience to be more confident than you in what you're selling, right? That is just very challenging. No one wants to get on the phone with me and hear me like, I don't know if I can actually help you figure out business and make money. Can you just pay me to make me feel like maybe I'm good at what I do? Right? Like like, no, you don't want to hear that. You want to know. I'm like, no, I'm really good at what I fucking do. And if not, I won't, if I don't think I can help you, I'm not going to offer coaching to you. I'm really good at helping you spot the right gap in your business to close and knowing exactly what to focus on so you can make 10K months or more. That's why 28 of my clients have made 10K months or more, right? You want to know that I really trust and believe that. And then we've got that other confidence piece we were talking about. So if that feels like, oh, that feels a little shaky for me, good to know. Like that's just the place to lean in, and that's the place that everyone has to lean in at one part. Okay, the other piece here that I wanted to speak to. Oh, and then we talked about what's your point of focus. That I wanted to speak to here, because I went out of order. Let me just see my notes. We talked about point of attraction. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but two more quick pieces here. So the other one that really got me at the start of my business, and I think this shows up a lot for those of you who are high achievers, for those of you who are maybe recovering perfectionists, and I am a recovering perfectionist. I am a high achiever. I am a high-functioning post-traumatic stress disorder person, right? Like I have a lot of things that serve me really well in business that I've also had to find the light and shadow sides to play with. So when I say these things, like I see you, I get you, I'm not calling anyone out. And I want you to see that, hey, you can also have those things, be recovering through those things and still have a wildly successful business and to still work through all of it. I make $350K plus a year in my business, only doing one-on-one, working very normal hours. I have a very happy life and marriage. I think I'm one of the happiest people I know. And when I started my business, I had to really do work around that. And what I find for those of us who kind of fall into that camp, which I think many of you might be, is we tend to have black and white or all or nothing thinking. And that really, really made things harder on me. And because of that, what I had a big pattern of doing, and if you're a client of mine, you know I probably lovingly give you shit on this all the time because I can't not see it, because I've had to go through it. Because of that, I was really hard on myself and really made myself wrong all of the time, because everything in my brain was like, it's either right or it's wrong. It's either pass or it's fail. It's either a wild success or it fucking sucks and everything is wrong, right? I'm either doing brilliant and making $1 million or I'm the worst ever piece of shit, right? Like it was just these really big extremes, and these big extremes of like there was no room for gray. If you're someone who's been in my world since the beginning of my business, you probably know I started talking about surrender to the gray. That was a phrase I came up for myself because I just had to learn to surrender to that gray zone, and just to see that so much in business and life really isn't all or nothing. It's not black and white. It's not all right or all wrong. It's not all this or all that. It's not you're either amazing or you suck and then you're not amazing. There's so much room for gray, and gray is where everything you want in business exists. And it is also the mindset that allows you to run at results. I feel like I talk about that quite a bit. And I think what happens when we're in those extremes, and when we're in that either like giving ourselves such a hard time, we're watching ourselves really closely, we're overthinking, it makes it really, really tough to focus on what does your business need from you, and then to run at executing, and to run at executing where you can then get the data and the feedback and neutrally look at it to make the shifts that you need to then run at again. What I found would happen is I'm really good at taking action. I can over action sometimes, but I was in so much of that kind of thinking that instead of them being able to action and then take a look at, great, I put out these posts, these are the results I got back, these were fine, these were great. Like, I'm so proud of myself, I did good work, and how do I get better results? What do I need to adjust? How do I need to switch that, right? Instead of being able to be really neutral, everything was so weighty, because if it didn't give the result I wanted, it was like I would dig myself into a hole of basically why I was the biggest piece of shit ever. And then that meant I had to spend all of this time digging myself out of this hole, right, to get back to neutral, to then look at that piece of content, to then make the adjustments, to then go out and to basically do that all over again. And I think that just slowed my results down. I'm not mad at it. That's exactly the journey I needed to go on, and the growth I need to go through, and the healing I needed to do. And honestly, in many ways, I think it serves me now, because I can just see these patterns in clients so much and support them, and also just have the compassion and empathy and understand where it's coming from. But I reflect this here because I think it's just helpful to hear, where it's like, it wasn't actually the like content mistakes or whatever, or like things I need to refine that were the challenge. It was the way I was receiving that information or receiving those results, and the way that would then spin me out, that would then just slow everything down. And what I just see now, I was joking with my coach on a recent call, I'm like, I feel a little bit like a robot in business, and I'm clearly like one of the most emotional humans. So I'm not like an emotional person. If you're a client of mine, you know I'm not a robot at all. On coaching calls, but in terms of the way I look at my business, and I was just thinking about how I've been looking at just things in like marketing and messaging and content and things in business this year, I just have trained my brain so much to be in that gray zone, and so much to not take it on as personal, and just to see it so neutrally that it does feel a little robotic, because I stopped taking it on, and I'm just like, oh, great. So this kind of post performs better than that kind of post. Interesting. When I open a post this way, we get 3 times the reach. Interesting, right? It's just a different way, which means I'm not digging myself into a hole because I'm not making it personal. And that means I can just take a look at the strategy, make those changes, go run a test and run a result. And I think that is one of the bigger shifts I've made. I want to see these comments in a second. And so I would say with this, that was the pattern, but if it's maybe easier to distill, it's sort of like, where are you making business personal? And the work is, how can you see business really isn't personal? And the less, even though it's so personal because we all love our work so much, right? I love my business. I love my clients. If you're a client of mine, you know I've probably cried with almost every one of you on a call at some point, because I love this work so much and my people so much. And like, so that is deeply personal. But business itself, the marketing, the sales, if someone hires you or doesn't hire you, if someone leaves you a shitty comment, if someone doesn't pay their invoice, right? None of that is actually personal. It's like 95 made up stat here, but 95% of it has nothing to do with you. And the more you can see that, the easier it is to be neutral, and the easier it is to not swing and to be more in that gray zone, and then just to execute on what your business actually needs. Okay, let me see here. Claire says, haha, yes, and the sweats mean nothing about our income. It's true. Maybe it's like the more you sweat, the more income you make. Kate says, it was the same for me with teaching versus doing lives. Teaching, I got to hide behind Teacher Kate. So fascinating, yes. However, when doing a live for the first time, I was completely stunned because I was just Kate. I'm also not going to say just Kate, because you are Kate and you are brilliant. But isn't that so fascinating? I think this is also why, Kate, I don't know if you've ever done this, or I don't know if you work with archetypes at all, but I know some of my clients love having archetypes and having like a role for their business. And I do think, well, I think we want to be fully us. I do think that can be very helpful for some people if you're hearing this, right? Even if you're thinking about your CEO role, can you make an archetype around that? And I wonder if you ever played with that, Kate. But I think it's just so true. And Claire says, I once wrote down my internal dialogue and cried when I read the words, which was so interesting and painful that it interrupted the pattern. Oh, such a powerful practice, Claire. I think for everyone listening who resonates with that, I think for so many, I think in this group, I think if you're attracted to this group, my guess is you're heart-centered. My guess is you're caring. My guess is you're really good at what you do, and you probably have confidence hidden under there, right? But you don't want to make other people feel bad, and you don't want to be mean to other people, and you maybe have some trauma in your past, and you maybe have a little anxiety, and you maybe are a high achiever, and you're maybe a perfectionist, right? And my guess is that for so many of you, you're probably really hard on yourself. And so I think what Claire said and what we're talking about here, I think it's just noticing how we can really just weaponize our own brains against ourselves and our own coping mechanisms against ourselves, and how cruel we can be to ourselves, and how when you can notice that, even if it's just writing it out and seeing that, it's like, would you ever say those words to someone else? I just remember, like, gosh, if I were to find some of my own old journals, I'm sure I would read that and be like, who is that? Does anybody know the Taylor Swift song? I'm very caffeinated today. Taylor Swift has a song, and in the middle of the song, it says something like, can you call Taylor to the phone? And she's like, no, because she's dead. And basically it's like the old Taylor Swift is dead. And I think that's a little bit here of what we're talking about. And it seems a little dramatic, but I know if I were to go back to old journals, I'd be like, who is that? Who would talk to themselves that way? But I talk to myself that way. And I think the opportunity for everyone here is not to make yourself, like, do not use this as another excuse to feed this pattern, which is be mean to yourself, where it's like, great, you do this, and give yourself a hard time. I think it's just seeing this is a pattern. And yes, there's probably some deeper work here in terms of where does it stem from? Why do you do this? There's probably a self-soothing mechanism to this. Why is this the thing you're doing? but also to see like this might be a part of you that you want to, in air quotes, kill off so that you can allow the other part of you to really shine, and the part of you that is kinder to yourself, because that's the part of you that's going to have an easier time running your business. Claire says exactly, it's so wild. It's so wild. Okay, y'all, how are we on time? Do you mind if I share one more with you? Because I made I had a lot of mindset trash. This is like part one. We could do part two, but I have one other one that just felt important to speak to, and it's coming up with this one. So if y'all are okay on time, I guess you can always hop off if not, but I'm going to share this last one real quickly. And it's kind of like to what Claire's bringing up here and to what we're talking about, and to being this like newer version of yourself. One of the things I also really saw, and I saw when I looked at my old coaching notes and some of my old journals, I had a pattern of really needing to get my self-soothing and my safety from others. And so I think we're hearing this, right? Through the abdicating of the power, and to the, even we're talking about here, right? Like being so mean to myself, and like why are we perfectionists, right? Like if you're a perfectionist, like that is a safety mechanism, and part of that is we just think if we can make everything perfect, nothing bad will happen. But I think there's also a want for like approval and soothing from others there. Anyway, what I really worked on and have done quite a bit of mindset work around, and what I support my clients with as well, what I've really seen to be true is the less you need self-soothing from other sources, and this is a way we abdicate our power, right? It kind of all goes back to that. And the less you need that from others, right, then the less you also need it from your business, because I think when we have that pattern and we don't know how to, basically because we're mean to ourselves, right, we don't know how to give that to ourselves, we're also looking to all of these external sources to make us feel safe or to validate us. And I think then that can get really put into the business, right? And then we end up having this very unhealthy relationship with the business, where the business is meant to soothe us. The business is meant to give us esteem. The business is meant to tell us we're good enough, which also means what we were talking about earlier, what's the point of focus, right? One shitty comment, one mean person. It's like, it is like a house of cards, because one thing that isn't soothing you or giving you what you want is going to crumble that all apart. And I think this is kind of going back to that confidence piece a little bit, but the more I really learned, right, like the less I can look to my business to give me that, to tell me I'm good enough, to tell me I'm safe, to tell me I'm okay, to tell me that when I post something, everyone's not going to hate me or think I'm a bitch or whatever those things are, the more I can give that to myself, the more I can soothe myself, the more I can back myself, the more I can advocate for myself, the more I can be like, instead of making myself wrong, making myself right, but even taking it to a next level. And the more I can just be like, I'm my own best cheerleader now. And like, I mean, you don't have to like me or not, but like, I like me, right? The more you can do that, the more unstoppable you are in business. And I've really just seen that to be the work. And I think that can sound, without all of the context, where it's like, it almost sounds like that fake affirmation work where we just like talk, I love myself, which, I mean, I'm here for affirmations, but I think just seeing what that is really addressing and what that's really about, and what I would invite everyone here is just seeing the more you can do the mindset work, where you're literally, where it's just like, how can I have my own back? How can I back myself? How can I just work on being my number one fan? How can I just fall in love with myself and with my flaws and with the way I handle my flaws and with the way I'm willing to run at things and fuck things up and clean them up? Like, how can I just make that all so right and fall in love with that and back that and soothe myself? When you give that to yourself, and you don't need it from your business, or you don't need it from a client, or you don't need it from money, right? Because we do this, we're sneaky. We'll do this with business, but then we start doing it with money, right? Because then 10K months happen, and then it's like, and I've had to work through this with money, right? Like, I think the reason I can feel really good with revenue share is I've let go of this with money, because I shifted this from business to then suddenly it was money, right? I need the money to self-soothe me. I needed more and more and more and more, right? Suddenly 40K a month was not enough. Like, that was not safety enough, right? When you can let go and unhook from that and give that to yourself, you are unfucking stoppable. And I think also just seeing that is just the work. And what tends to happen is, just to like not break anyone's or like rain on anyone's parade, is our brains are sneaky. And so if that's something that comes up for you, it's probably just going to keep showing up in different ways at every level. And your job is just to keep noticing where that's showing up, so you can keep taking your power back around that, keep learning to self-soothe, keep learning to give that to yourself and back yourself. Like, that is how you change the game for yourself in business, in my opinion. That's made, I think, probably hands down the biggest difference for me, and that's what I see in my clients. And I also think that is some of the hardest work, which is why, what do? What I started the live stream with, I think that's why we want to abdicate our power to shiny marketing secrets, to another platform, to someone who's telling us they have all the secrets to making money, because that just feels so much easier than having to learn how to back ourselves and soothe ourselves, right? Like, I would choose that all day, every day, if that would actually work. Claire says, so freaking true, it's a game changer. It's just like, it's the whole thing. So I hope this is valuable for you all. I hope this was normalizing for you all. I hope this helps you see that really what is personal is universal. You might have some, this by no means is all of the mindset trash. Maybe we will do a part 2 if you all want. But I think it's some of the more common ones. And if you have something different coming up, that is normal too. These are the ones that jumped up the most for me. But I hope for everyone this was also a helpful reminder that, like, super normal, all stuff you can work through, but also what Claire was mentioning and what I was saying, I think sometimes we do forget how powerful the mind is, and that our mind really is responsible for 90 to 95% of what's showing up for you in your business and the results you're getting, because it just feels easier to put everything on something else. But we forget, even, look, I'm a strategist. I am here for strategy and action all day, every day. And I will never tell you that you do not need both in your business, because you absolutely fucking do. We're going to talk about that next week in the masterclass. And that strategy and action, I was taking very similar, I had a very similar strategy when I wasn't, in those 2.5 years when I wasn't making 10K months. And if anything, I was double actioning. I was working till like 3 in the morning, I had a 9-to-5 job then. I was taking more action than I am now. But I'm making far more money now. And I think just seeing what is the difference maker, the big difference maker there. Yes, I refined my strategy. Sure, yes, like my strategy's gotten more and more refined. I will absolutely speak to that. Like, that is 1,000% some of it, but the rest of it has literally all been the mindset. And just really want to drill that in, because I think it's just easy for us to forget that, or to not want to hear that, or to just go chasing one part of the puzzle. And we just need both pieces, right? We really do need the mindset. We really do need the strategy and action. All right, I have been talking for a very long time. Kate says, very, thank you. Claire says, so good. I love y'all. Thank you for being here. Don't forget, if you want to join me for the masterclass next month, I will drop a link for that, the path to consistent 10K months. It's going to be so good. I'm excited for it. I'll drop a link for that, and then I will be back next week for that, and we'll keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for being here live and for your questions and reflections. It made this so much more fun for me. Bye, y'all.